Hello and welcome to the Motorcycle Report. My name's Ryan, and if you're like me, you want to know all there is to know about the past, present, and future of the motorcycle world. Today I'd like to talk about the service of emergency rider volunteers. So I was watching a film reel called Look at Life Behind the Tone-Up Boys 1964. Look at Life is an informative mini-documentary series. To quote Wikipedia, they say, Look at Life was a regular British series of short documentary films, of which over 500 were produced between 1959 and 1969 by the Special Features Division of the Rank Organization for screening in their Odeon and Gaumont cinemas. The films always preceded the main feature film that was being shown in the cinema that week. It replaced the circuit's newsreel, Universal News, which had become increasingly irrelevant in the face of more immediate news media, particularly on television with the launch of ITN on the independent television service, which began broadcasting in parts of the United Kingdom in 1955. Unquote. During the Behind the Tone-Up Boys 1964 film short, I enjoyed watching the story be told of everyday English motorcycle riders having picnics and fun times and fun rides with other riders. One segment stood out for me beyond the rest, however. As far back as 1962, an organization started by Margaret Ryerson and her husband, an organization called the Volunteer Emergency Service, that they ran out of their home in Surrey, South London, England. By 1964, there were 4,000 members. They would help hospitals, welfare societies, and public health authorities whenever blood or other medical needs had to be transported. Watching the film, I saw that Mrs. Ryerson appeared to be a kindly middle-aged lady who had a great desire to help. I've talked about helping in some of my other videos. It seems to be a recurring theme for this channel. And so when I saw Mrs. Ryerson on the phone, either to take an incoming emergency call or dispatch a volunteer rider for medical transport, I knew this was something I wanted to report on. With her pinboard map with thousands of pins which indicated where the closest volunteers would be to make the quickest deliveries possible on their motorcycles, I could see that this was a serious business. Perhaps she'd even received a divine calling for her to start her business. A small library of Dewey Decimal type organized cut cards lines a large table under the map where it appears she and her helpers would write down the appointments. Remember, this service was run out of Mr. and Mrs. Ryerson's home. What a wonderful thing they did, and now it's over 50 years later and there's still an organization that carries forth the Ryersons' vision and life devotion. From the Service of Emergency Rider Volunteers website, I quote, How it began. Blood bikes have been in operation since 1962, when Margaret Ryerson formed the Emergency Volunteer Service, or EVS, in Surrey, South London, England. This was followed by the Freewheelers Action Group in Stevenage, England in 1969, who initially served hospitals in Stevenage, Luton, Dunstable, Bedford, and Hitchin. These original groups are no longer operating, but they inspired other groups to provide similar services. The third group, which still operates today, was the Yeovil Freewheelers, spelled Y-E-O-V-I-L, Freewheelers, founded in 1978, and this was followed by SERV, S-E-R-V, which formed shortly after EVS disbanded in Surrey, South London. In April 1981, in Surrey, Service by Emergency Rider Volunteers was set up to supply a quick and reliable means of transporting emergency blood products to the hospitals and medical facilities at night. Prior to SERV, the only means available to hospitals, doctors, and other medical establishments for the transport of emergency blood supplies at night were the following: taxi, ambulance, police, courier, and transfusion service vehicle. Each of these options had good and bad points. Taxis. The advantage of these was that there were plenty of them. The disadvantage was reliability and cost. The cost to hospitals would range from 30 to 60 euros or more depending on location. The hospital also had to wait for one to be available, and it was not guaranteed how long it would take to deliver. Ambulance. Fast and able to respond quickly. The disadvantage was it removed a much-needed emergency vehicle from service during the transport time. Police. Fast and able to respond quickly. The disadvantage was it removed a much-needed emergency vehicle from service during the transport time. Courier. Limited availability during the night. High cost for service. Transfusion service. Provide regular daytime scheduled hospital deliveries and ad hoc deliveries to hospitals on special request. SERV supplies this service free of any charge, thus freeing up much-needed funds for improved patient care and other needed facilities within the hospital." Unquote. And they have a video on their webpage, and I'll go ahead and post that link below, where you can go and watch the excerpt from the Tone Up Boys film reel on their page. So I'll set the link. You can go check it out for yourself. Mrs. Ryerson doing her business there. Very impressive. And now I'd like to read from an article published by the BBC News on December 18th, 2016. There's a photograph of a pretty female rider named Isabel Kidd, decked out in reflective yellow riding gear on a reflective yellow motorcycle that has a decal with the word blood placed on the windshield. I quote the BBC News article website. Quote, "Blood Bikers, the volunteer motorcyclists who help the NHS." Across the UK, a group of volunteer motorcyclists is helping the NHS by delivering blood. What motivates them, asks Simon Fry. Isabel Kidd is on call for 80 hours of 1 week each month. At very little notice, she can be woken in the night and find herself riding a motorcycle with a vital delivery for a hospital. But she's not an NHS employee. She's just a volunteer, one of more than 1,400 advanced qualified riders of the Nationwide Association of Blood Bikers. In 2013, the association's bikers responded to around 35,000 rapid transport requests from 262 UK hospitals. They are almost a Deliveroo for the NHS. It's not just blood, with the bikers also delivering surgical tools, human milk, spinal fluid, fecal matter for fecal transplants, and even rabies serum conveyed via panniers on their powerful motorbikes. According to NHS Blood and Transplant, volunteers delivered 1.32% of all the units of blood moved in 2015. That seems small, but equates to 29,300 blood units. Kidd first discovered blood biking when on a course at the Institute of Advanced Motorists. Her observer, himself a blood biker, warned their training ride might be stopped if he was called away. Kidd started volunteering as a rider for the Kent group called SERV, Service by Emergency Response Volunteers. She later discovered the blood bikers had helped her own niece. Caitlin, undergoing cancer treatment, had received platelets delivered by a SERV Kent rider on Christmas Eve, 2009. It's an emotional process for many of the riders when they reflect on the work they do. Caitlin had these big burly bikers wiping their eyes as she said how they had played their part in saving her life twice, says Kidd. I was just drawn to it immediately as a way of helping the community and being on the bike at the same time, says Kidd. I thought this would be a great way of giving something back for the great care Caitlin had received. Blood biking is almost a subculture within a subculture. You can see a presence at many motorcycling events at Silverstone and Brands Hatch, where bikers are encouraged to sign up for their advanced training and join the blood bikers. The movement grew out of two groups in the 1960s. In the early part of the decade, Margaret Ryerson and her husband formed Surrey's emergency volunteer service, to put riders' love of motorcycling to practical use supporting hospitals. In 1969, Des Gibbons created the Freewheelers Youth Community Action Group, providing a similar hospital transport service serving Stevenage Lister Hospital, the Luton and Dunstable Hospital, Hitchin Hospital and Maternity Unit, and 2 Bedford hospitals. Now blood bikers are braced to be called out in the night in all weather. One of my first urgent runs was for a platelets delivery for Maidstone Hospital, which I had to collect from Tooting in the middle of the night, says Kid. It's a challenge waking up sometime and trying to take in the information, but as soon as you hear the word urgent, adrenaline kicks in and suddenly you're very alert. The patient was very ill and they needed them as soon as I could possibly get them there. I've also done runs in torrential rain. They're quite a challenge as visibility is reduced and it's altogether just wet and horrible. The vast majority of riders are men, just 4% are women. The bulk of the blood bikers' dedicated fleet bikes are mainly BMW RTs, Triumph Trophies, Honda ST 1300s, and Yamaha FJR 1300s. Riders can't exceed the speed limit currently, but there are hopes the law will be changed. My sister and mom worry a bit, but they know I've had really good training and am as safe as I can be, says Kid. For blood bikers like Kid, volunteering comes at a price. All costs are met by the volunteers. When using our own vehicles, we pay all running costs, including fuel. When I'm using the response bike, the liveried bike provided by the charity, I still pay for all the fuel myself, while the charity pays for the bike's upkeep. A busy week can prove very expensive. But why does the NHS need volunteer blood bikers at all? The NHS benefiting from unpaid manpower is not unusual. According to Sir Leonard Fenwick, Chief Executive of Newcastle upon Tyne Hospital, NHS Foundation Trust, the NHS nationally has thousands of volunteers in hospitals and communities, and if the blood bikers service was lost, the NHS would be obliged to make alternative arrangements. The cost would be many thousands in both pounds spent and people served across the Northeast. As well as her writing, Kid tries to encourage others to join. She inspired a fellow female member of her advanced biking group to become a blood biker in Essex, and is now proving a role model at home. My 2 boys, now 26 and 24, took up biking themselves when I did after I bought my 125cc motorcycle. I think it was a case of, if Mom can ride a bike, so can we. Unquote. God bless these riders, and may they continue to serve in perpetuum. Well, that's all for this report. If you like this video and you'd like to hear more, please click the subscribe button. Thank you, and I'll talk to you soon.